Today's episode is sponsored by one of my favorite rap labels, Front Row Regale. Started by my good friend Rock City Mark, legendary rapper Ito, and Jay Rios, they are the go-to for real hip-hop. Make sure to check out the whole team, including DJ Doo-Wop, Jay Black, Nice to Future, Boo Boo the Prince, Reno RX, and Uwop Diggs. Follow Front Row Regale on all platforms and check out the new New York by Ito and DJ Doo-Wop out now.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Hey.
I kind of like the air of mystery behind Real Bad Man, though. That was something that intrigued me in the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, but it has to come to an end at some point. Like you can't, it's then I become like Dead Mouse or Daft Punk or like not some like not a real person. You're like a character. So
what was your main goal for it in the beginning? Like, did you have like a vision in mind?
Yes, and it was gonna be a clothing brand first, which it still is. It's a clothing brand first. We put out way more clothing than music.
Dope ass clothing brand. Don't I have to say
Thank you.
that?
And I have like the clothing brand. There's multiple people who do the clothing brand with me. So I have partners that all work on the clothing part, and then the music was supposed to be like I did the clothing thing because I was like, oh, I'm not going to do music anymore because I did music previously, but not. I mean, I grew up in the rap world, and then I'm older, so I went through the time where rap like kind of got whack for a little bit. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna listen to Portishead and Radiohead and other groups with the word head in it. And then eventually like still made beats, and I had a band, and we did like it was all like sort of, Portishead Massive Attack influenced, and did that for a few years. And then I was like, I'm done wasting time doing music. My career is in fashion and clothing designing. That's what I do. Most of my day is spent doing that kind of stuff. And so I was like, I'm not going to do music, but my creative outlet will be Real Bad Man, and it'll be a clothing brand. And then it didn't last very long before I started like producing again. It was the first season we did a 7-inch, and it was the theme of the season was krautrock. So it was I wanted the 7-inch to sort of be like a curated songs that were around a theme. Mm-hmm. So the first season record ended up being Edon doing like flipping vitamin C, which is a can song. And then the B side or the other side were these guys who do kind of like digital dance hall out of Tokyo named BIM One, and they did a Tangerine Dream song. So I kind of like was like, these are the songs I want you to sample, do your thing. I didn't have to produce anything. But then season 2, like there's only a few people that really produce and rap at the same time, and are very good at both. Edon is one of those, so I got very lucky. But season 2, I wanted to choose rappers I wanted to work with. So the season 2's theme was drugs. So it was all trying to sample from like albums that were known as like drug albums or stoner records, like, where the artists were really stoned when they made it.
Yeah.
So that was the theme, and that was the idea behind the record. And then, I ended up was like, oh, I can just make these beats myself.
None of it was you, though. None of this was like, I wanted to, like, your plan. You wanted to create something that was not yourself as a
It wasn't that. It was
personality.
more of I started making the beats again out of necessity because it would have been way more work for me to like hire a producer and say this is the song I want to sample, and then I would have just like, you know, been so hands-on. I've been making beats like my whole life since I was 16, you know. So
Yeah. Did you
I
look at music like it was a girl you were done with forever, or one that you were flirting trying to get back
I
with?
could never get rid of the girl. It's
Yeah.
I
To
always
this
like
day, you
even when I stopped, I would still make beats. And like, you know, my friends and family were like, I thought you were done making beats. Like, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm doing this for fun. It's like doodling on a paper. Like I don't doodle, but I'll open up Ableton and like fuck around. So eventually after the second record, which was like Mayhem Loren doing Psycho Dwarf, like a cover of Psycho Dwarf. Um, and then Logi doing like an original song, but in the sort of like sampling all these like, I don't want to sample snitch on myself, but like sort of like psychedelic folk records like from the 70s that were known. So using those samples as like my sort of my base. And then there was a third song that I didn't produce that was Huey Briss, the rapper, did a song, and the idea was to take a sample from the Chronic. One of the songs Dre used. Um and then Nico Beats did that song. And then from there on, I was like, I'm just gonna produce it myself and I'm gonna work with rappers I want to work with. And then it sort of spawned like me making beats again. Sort of professionally.
I've listened to a couple of, I mean, I've read a couple of your interviews, and I listened to
Yeah.
the one shout out, the Dad Bod Rap Pod,
Yeah.
and you do talk with love about music, and it is crazy. Like, did you fall out of love with it? Like, you talk about it with such passion.
No, it's the when you put your energies into something and it doesn't turn into what you want it to, it gets frustrating. And you're like, fuck, like I keep putting all this time, effort, and money into like music. And I had a band, and there was three of us in the band, but it was sort of more my vision than anyone else's. So it was more of my time, and it was a lot of like wrangling. Like, I need you here at this time to do this thing for me. And when you're doing an album like with a band, there's a lot of that. And then all the artwork, all the design, all the music videos, all of that stuff was my stuff that I would do, and so I don't know, it came a point where it's like I have kids, like I have a career, and my career does not involve making music. So, and because it's a band, you're supposed to tour and play shows, and I don't like that shit at all. Like I prefer making music and producing and like working and collaborating. I don't want to be on a stage necessarily, um, every night, for months at a time doing that. I'm not a performer. I'm a producer. I'm a producer and an editor and a creative. I'm not entertainer.
Was there a moment you fell out of love with it?
I never fell out of love. It was more of like, I don't know. I guess it was more I'm looking for a very performative to be like, I'm done with it. Like I'm done with it. I'm done with my old group was Pollen. I'm done with Pollen. I'm just gonna like concentrate on like my agency, my design, like all the design stuff. I do like I do so many different jobs, and I do think that like, if I could give advice, is pick your lane and stay in that lane. Don't try to drive in three lanes at the same time, because you're just going to go way slower than if you were in one lane. And I can see that now because I still do my design and like agency stuff. And then I do like the music Real Bad Man stuff too, and they're kind of going at the same time. And I have sort of partners with each, so it helps me. But like, there was a, years ago, like I also went to film school, so like, I developed a few shows that we took out to pitch and had like producers and a showrunner and a director and all these things that people attach. And you spend all this time, like, I don't know, working on this idea that you're then going to go and try to get someone to pay you to bring that idea closer to fruition. And I don't know, we spent 2 years working on this thing, and it didn't go. And it was like supposed to be the one that went. And that's the one I was like, I'm done doing that. So I'm done like working on shows from scratch. Like if an opportunity arises, yes, like I have the skill set, I know how to write, I know how to direct, I know all that stuff, and I've done it. But I don't know, developing a show with like writers and all that stuff, just while I have all this other stuff going on, is a kind of a waste of time because I can't put all my time into that.
You have to work within your means of who you are as a person.
Yes, or where my career has taken me.
Mm-hmm.
If I had sold that show, things would probably be different. I'd be doing that, and I'd be doing Real Bad Man, or I'd still be just doing music and that stuff, and I'd be, but my career hasn't taken me there outside of music. So it's taken me down a path of like designer, creative director, art director. So I work with brands in the clothing world and like, bigger brands outside of the clothing world, but want sort of a very sort of specific thing, which is like sort of elevated like streetwear aesthetic.
This is a more esoteric question, so I pardon me, but you said your career led you down that path. Do you feel like you didn't have control over what you were creating, or do you feel like you created the path?
I mean, ultimately I created the path, but the path was created by choices. So like, if I were like, hey, you know what? I don't care about money or anything. I'm just going to be a starving artist. That path might have been very different, but you kind of make choices to, I don't want to say to survive because it wasn't that dire, but like I never wanted to be a starving artist. I was always like, oh, I can do what I'm good at in the design world, and then that would afford me the freedom to do what I want in the music world. And that's what's happening now. I Real Bad Man is all self-funded. So, I'm able to do it because I have a career as a creative.
Yeah.
And Real Bad Man is kind of where everything kind of collides finally, where it's like I can do design and I can do the music and it's all under one roof. But, eventually I need to step out a little bit of the shadow because no one, like people are like, oh, Real Bad Man's a group, Real Bad Man's a this. It like, and I don't know, for it to, I think, grow and for the record label to grow and for the brand to grow. I think, I guess coming out of the shadows a little bit for the music, at least, could be good. I don't know.
Well, it's funny hearing you say like when you were in a band, you were doing all the work because now you're kind of like, it is me. Let me get the.
Yeah. I always said it was produced by the band, but I produced every song, like I worked with the guy mixing it every time, but I was always
something scary about it being all on your back. Like if you step out of the shadows.
Yeah. I mean, no, there's nothing scary about it, but I've always been loyal to like my crew, so like I want, I like this sort of group. Oh, we're in this together. But eventually it's like, all right, I've been doing way too much stuff on my own. So, but with the music stuff's all me. Like the clothing, there's more than just me, but the music, it's, I'm the only one making the beats. I'm the one working with the artists. I'm the one, working with the the person mixing it and mastering, all that stuff is all done, and it's my, curation. Like the idea of like, oh, my beats would sound good with this person, like that would be fun,
Yeah.
you know. I'm not necessarily looking at it like, I want a really good body of work when this is done. Like I want someone to be like, damn, that was good. He's good. Like that, all the discography is great. It's eclectic but great.
Do you
So
think you're, I mean, I think you're at that now, but do you feel that?
no. I don't think I will not. I don't know when I will feel that.
Hmm.
Maybe when I have the ability to message anyone I want, and they'll like, I know you. Yes, let's do it.
Mm.
I think they're, it's, but I don't expect that now. I'm still, even though I've been doing different iterations of music, like, I don't know, I've only released like 3 albums, like,
Yeah.
uh, like full albums where I'm the producer and there's an artist. Um, so there's more coming. There's a bunch more coming, but um, I've been doing it for a while, but you can only do so many albums a year. Like, so um, but yeah, there's a lot coming. There's a lot like finished, almost finished, in the works, finished and not able to be released. There's a lot of stuff.
How did you find the muse again?
Um, Sampling records, I guess, again, because I never stopped sampling records, but you know, when I learned how to make beats back in like the late 90s, mid late 90s, when I had my SP 1200, and it was, that era, there were all these rules to sampling. Oh, you can only sample in this genre. You can kind of, these are the years. Like if there was always rule breakers, but like for the most part, everything was there were all these rules. And I think those rules eventually went away. They're totally gone now. Now you can sample, a beach house record that came out a year ago and like you're all good. But back in the days, that would be weird. That like wouldn't happen. So I think the muse just came from the music I like is being made again, so like there was a time like when the sort of Boldy James Griselda-esque music was not cool. It wasn't that like, I don't, it wasn't until Rock Marciano did Macberg, like
Yeah.
that was it. That was like the first time that like in a while there was like an underground rap record that was fucking cool, that didn't seem backpacky. I don't want to get hate, but that's just like,
No, I mean, I'll get more hate that I don't care. Like, all right,
yeah,
so I'm 25 years old. I was born
yeah,
in 97.
yeah,
Like, I
yeah,
never got that like mass exodus of rap because I came up listening to
yeah, yeah,
everything.
yeah,
Like,
and yes,
I
yeah,
enjoy it all. Like, I'm a fan. So it's funny. I hear that so much of like hip hop was never like it left and came back.
yeah, like like after 96, like gangster rap and the Puffy, like that whole era, then you had Nelly and like all these, like rap became bigger and more commercial. And while that was happening, there was the underground stuff, and you had Def Jux and Anti-Con and all that stuff kind of going on at the same time. And I was totally not into that stuff. I'd go in and out and be like, oh, MF Doom. I love MF Doom. Like KMD, like I'm in. But like I was also listening to like electronic music and like alternative music. Anything that was still like kind of underground, like, but I still loved like the Radioheads of the world, but they made weird albums. Bjork, they didn't make like, they were popular and they're huge bands, but they didn't make like, they're not like the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Yeah.
you know.
But do you care about that?
Uh, I did when I was younger. I care less now.
Because you say you want to be able to hit up any artist you'd like, but
Yeah,
like
I mean, I don't think
you
I'm
have
not.
Marcy on a project. You have three Boldy James projects.
Yeah. But I
Like,
meant like, yeah, like, yes. Um, I don't think it matters if the music is popular, but like back then, like, you know, you're younger than me. Like the
mhm.
having to find stuff was was always fun. Discovering something new, which like, I like doing that now. It's just a different thing. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
you search a name on Spotify. That's how you discover something new. But back then, you'd be in a record store and you'd be like, what is this? This record that's on this weird label and it's from England? Like, there wasn't like a way to Google it. You'd have to take the chance. And if you came home and the record was dope, you'd like I'd get really excited. Oh, I found something new. Like now it's a little different, you know.
It totally is. It totally
So
is. I
it's
remember.
easier to find new music now.
Do you think it's easier for artists?
No, I think it's easier for the consumer. I think there's a lot out there. I think you can get lost. You can get lost in the sea. Sea is very big. I think with everything, with TV, with film, maybe not with film because there's still movie theaters, but like, on TV, there's so many choices. Like there are TV shows out there that people I'll hear about and I'll be like, I've never heard of that show. And they're
Yeah.
like, it's the most popular show on this. And it's like,
Yeah.
I don't know any of the people. I don't know the show, and I think there's a lot of that with music. Like my daughter's almost 14 and she'll play song like she'll, can I play songs? She'll play songs that are kind of cool, not even kind of cool, they're cool, of bands I've never heard of. And I'll be like, how did you find this? And I'll look and they'll have like millions and millions of streams on Spotify.
Yeah.
And back in the days, if there was a band that had, you know, millions and millions of fans, you'd know about them. But now there's so much out there and everyone's on streaming. You could be a band that like is is popular and tours and makes money, but like below the radar of like most people.
I try, and that's what the underground is like.
Yeah.
It's so I'm a stand-up comedian first.
Yeah.
That's my like main
Yeah.
thing. And then with the podcast, that's if someone asks me from the comedy world, like, hey, like what type of people do you interview?
Yeah.
6 out of 10 people, 7 out of 10 people aren't going to know who Griselda are, aren't going
Yeah,
to
of
know,
course. I would
it's
say 8 out of 10 won't know who they are.
exactly. But to some people, that's the top of
Yeah.
whatever
Yeah.
that is. It is very
Yeah.
strange.
Yeah. So yeah, I do think the underground has a sort of a ceiling, and to go beyond that, you need like that's where like Pusha T lives. He lives
Mm,
slightly beyond that ceiling,
yeah.
because he has songs with Pharrell and Jay-Z. You know,
Yeah. But it is
so
cool when you connect with someone on like, all right, I'll tell you a
yeah,
fun story about your brand,
yeah,
about when Crime Apple showed up to do the podcast probably
yeah,
2 years ago, we
yeah,
both were wearing the exact same Real Bad Man shirt, and I had to change.
yeah.
And that was like,
So
oh shit moment.
yeah, and like I like that. That's like, so I'll tell you a very odd story. So I witnessed a car accident, like a road rage accident in LA when I was probably like, I don't know, late 90s. Okay, maybe early 2000s. And it was two cars and like they were like kind of like going back and forth, and then one car hit the other car on Sunset and sped out, and like I pulled over and the cops took my info and they called me to testify. And so I go to court and I go and I get on the stand, and I testify what I saw. And I could see the jury. And there's a guy on the jury with a Bathing Ape sweatshirt. And this was before like Bathing Ape was anything. Bape was anything here in America. It was like a cool Japanese brand. There were no stores that carried it here. And I was like, that guy knows me. I don't know him, but because of what he's wearing, we're somehow connected. I testified, I left. 6 months later, I was like hanging out at the Stussy store, and some guy comes in and says, you testified at this court, at this trial. I was on the jury. And I was like, I remember you. You wore a Bape sweatshirt. And he was like, yeah. And it's that sort of thing. Like there's some sort of shared, like, if you know, is kind of like, you know, if you walk down the street and someone's in a Real Bad Man shirt, you might, you should like say what's up. That's how it used to be with Supreme. That's how it used to be with Bape. Like Supreme before, like 20 plus years ago. Like if you wore Supreme, you knew what was up.
Would you want to grow your brand to that level?
100%. But it has to start somewhere. It has to start authentic and cool. You can't go from like 0 to 100.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to take 20 years, but like,
at some point, because you can have like I always wonder how people see their art, because I see it as like you can have like a mom and pop restaurant or a really good steakhouse that's like smaller, or you can be like McDonald's, because McDonald's is like Drake is McDonald's, like
I'd want to be somewhere in between. I'd want to be Shake Shack.
All right, I fuck with that.
Yeah. Like, you don't need one on every corner, but Shake Shack does well and people like it.
Where did the idea come from for Real Bad Man?
I knew I wanted to start a brand. And the first season we had this idea. I wanted to bootleg some shirts, like bootleg some like krautrock bands. I'm trying to say this story without giving too much away of what we bootlegged, but
don't snitch on yourself.
Yeah, I'm really good at that. I wanted to bootleg a bunch of like shirts for bands that didn't really have merch. And if they did have merch, it was like a size small and it had holes in it and was like $1,000 because they didn't make a lot, and it wasn't like, it was just basic. It would be just a band logo. So I wanted to do that sort of thing where I took a band I like, took an album I like, and made like almost like a tribute tee, to them. So, and it wasn't a rap thing. It was we're going to do like weird 70s, like, crowd and prog rock bands. So that's what it started. We're going to bootleg these. We're going to make like 100 of them, and, we'll sell them to like a few friends' shops and that kind of stuff. And then we were thinking about the logo, or like what goes on the tag of the shirt. And I think, in LA, there's all those like neighborhood watchman signs where it's like the guy like this, and I was like, oh, what if we're stealing, we're doing something bad, we're, in theory, like breaking the law. And so we're gonna do that. So why don't we draw a little criminal guy and give it, and I had this idea of like selling watches, like from like, New York. You'd have the guys in the trench coat and he'd be like, want to buy a watch, and he'd have like a bunch of like stolen watches or fake watches. So it was that, and then the name, I wanted to, I think, probably call it Bad Man because he was like a bad character, and that was taken. There was another thing called Bad Man, and then I was like, oh, well, he's like real bad. He's worse than just bad, and had nothing to do with like the reggae world. Like I was after I said it, I was like, oh, I'm aware of that, but we're not reggae affiliated at all. So it just was like, hey, it was kind of like, he's not just bad, he's real bad, because he's, and it was this idea of like, this is a criminal, and what we were doing was in theory sort of criminal, because we're taking art that doesn't belong to us and we're repurposing it into something new. And that's what we do in music, and that's what we do for the clothing, and that's sort of like how I've always sort of, if you want to call it art, that's how I created art, is throughout my whole life was sampling, taking something that technically doesn't belong to me, but then turning it into something that's me.
Do you see this as you created as a brand? Do you see yourself as Real Bad Man now?
No, I mean, no, I always introduce myself as I'm Adam from Real Bad Man. People will be like, oh, that's Real Bad Man. And I'm like, oh, I'm Adam. Hold on one second.
You're like, I'm a pretty nice guy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine if people call me that.
No, of course.
I'm I no, and that's sort of like, do I show myself in videos or do I just keep it going? I think if you really want to find out like who I am, you can just Google it. Like, it's not that mysterious.
What's your relationship to psychedelics?
Um, I mean, I have mushrooms in my drawer. Uh,
I feel like it's a big part of like not
yeah, it
part,
is,
but
and
a big part of the
it's
artwork
aesthetic.
of
It's
yeah.
aesthetic, but I'm not like, I don't walk around baked all day. Like I in order for me to like, that to me is fun and relaxing, and I don't usually work on any sort of drugs. So, I have a bunch of weed and I have a bunch of mushrooms, and like at night, if I'll make beats like that, but like sort of my regular normal life, you know, like designing and stuff,
It was
I
just for aesthetic purposes.
no, I have to be kind of away from it. I want to enjoy it.
Mm.
I want to, and I can't like be stoned at work.
I
It
have a
gets,
real problem of taking mushrooms and then just having to do shit in public. And I'm like, this is the worst place for it. Like,
yeah, I mean, like if you take a little bit, you could still be happy. Like I like taking, like not micro, but like macro doses, and then going to like social things. Um, like I'll be smiley and happy. It takes the edge off. But yeah, I like for every day, like I'm not like an
oh yeah,
everyday,
no.
like
I tried microdosing once, like for to do a little
yeah,
bit, and that shit
yeah,
was horrible. I was like,
yeah,
wait, no, I can't. I
yeah. I don't mind.
like go.
I do it like, you know, couple times a month, you know.
Okay, you ever had like any crazy trips recently? Or are you pretty?
No, I mean, just no. I like I don't like being out of control.
Mhm.
That's like my, I like directing. You kind of have to be in control. So I like going right to the edge of that,
Mm.
where you could hear stuff and see stuff, but like, the ground is still flat. There's
Yeah.
no elephants talking to me.
You
But
ever do
like,
DMT?
I have not. I've been my one of my partners is like, come over. It's like you're in an animated film for 15 minutes. And I'm like, I don't know if that like is something I want to do, you
Yeah.
know. But
Uh-huh.
but I think for like Real Bad Man, the like, you know, I've always been into like the beat poets and like Burroughs and like psychedelic art and the stuff that came out of, all of that stuff, the Ram Dass and all of that aesthetic, like R. Crumb and the seven, like that's the big influence on my art. So I embrace it, and I take influence from it. Um, but I'm probably too scared to be the guy that like takes DMT and starts making beats, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah. No,
So
I totally understand that because I'm the guy. Yeah, it
yeah,
was a wild experience. I started the
yeah,
podcast, and it's one of those things. Psychedelics is one of those things. The farther away you get from it, the more you're
yeah,
just like, oh, those were experiences, and it wasn't like you didn't
yeah,
really have this awakening. You were that person that you just needed something to push you to the edge.
yeah. And I like having them. I like doing them, but I don't like going full blown.
Hmm.
That's too much.
Well, yeah, you have like
Need a day off in between.
you're
And
like
I don't get days off in
no, you're
between.
like a real person who has to do things and
Yeah.
have a business. I
If
think.
I had like a cabin in the woods and I was like there for like weeks on end, then yes. But
Mhm.
like I, I live in LA. I have like two kids and a dog and a wife and like
Yeah.
I have stuff I have to do every day.
What type of artist did you think you were going to be when you were younger?
Oh, I mean, I still don't think I'm an artist, even though like I technically create art.
Or a creative,
I thought I was going to be a
whatever
film
word.
director. I thought I was going to be a film director. Like I went to school for that. Like as a kid, I was obsessed with movies and music. Like I DJ'd at a really young age. Um, in high school, there was like a public access station, like at the high school. I don't know if you know this story, but there was a like a or little radio station that I was a part of, and then there was a TV station, and I did a video show, a public access rap show, and Alchemist was the host in high school. So we
Yeah.
went to the same high school. So I always had a camera with me, but I was also DJing at the same time. So I thought, after high school, I didn't go and I had my drum machine and I DJ'd, but I went to school for film. I didn't go to school for music. I didn't go to school for music business. Like I went to school to be like a video director, and then or just a director, film and TV, and screenwriting. And you learn how to direct people, so you learn how to communicate your ideas. But then after college was done, the jobs I wanted to, or I didn't want to go and like be an assistant to like a director or work in like an editing house. Like I worked at Stussy, like at the store, and I was like, oh, I'll work here because I know these are my friends, and then on weekends and after work and days off, I'll write and I'll do music, I'll do all the stuff I love. And then eventually, like, I used all the stuff I learned from directing into the fashion world, and I started to like reach out to artists I wanted to work with, and was like, hey, I need you to do this. It's the same thing that you learn at film school. Like, directing is communicating what you want to the artist that you're working with, and then guiding them to get what you want. At the end of the day, the director's the one in charge. So the director's happy, you move on to the next scene. So I don't think I was consciously doing it, but I had those skills. I had the skills to be able to communicate my ideas, and I would be reaching out to artists that I wanted to work with for like Stussy things. Like, oh, I want you to do this collection, this is the vibe, and then we would work together on creating the graphics, the artwork, the clothing, and then that's what I still do today. And now music is the same thing. It's, if there's something wrong or something you don't like as the producer, you need to be able to communicate like, oh, maybe you could do it like this, or, I think with rap, it's a little different though. I think with like, especially with like the people that in like the genre that I've been creating in, a lot of them have such like style already that like, I mean, I like Boldy just does his thing and you're like, oh my God, it's amazing, as opposed to like a younger artist that might need a bit more guidance.
Mm.
And I haven't worked with a lot of like young artists that like have never really recorded before, but I think like, with like, Boldy, I use Boldy as an example because I've worked with him the most out of like anyone. So like, it's a pretty good, like I have a pretty good idea of how to work with him, and like with him, I just sort of let him do his thing, like you would on a film with like a really good actor who knows how to act. Maybe every once in a while you're like, hey, can you double the chorus, or can you do this, or can you give me something here,
Yeah.
in a section that you're not thinking of. But for the most part, there's a reason why you want to work with him.
What's your connection to Boldy on like an energy level? Why do you think you guys work together?
I don't know, I when we first met or started DMing, he had done on season 3 for Real Bad Man, the 7-inch has a song with Boldy and Alchemist rapping. And then the B side is Large Professor, Blue, and Exile. And I did those beats. That was season 3. And I asked Alchemist, like, oh, can you rap on this? And then I was like, I don't know if you have someone who who would sound good with you, can you put them on there too? And he was recording Boldy, like probably the Boldface EP or probably Price of Tea was probably during that period. And so they recorded, and he was like, oh, what do you think of Boldy James? And I was like, yeah, I haven't really heard him in a while. And he's like, oh, we're recording. Is it cool? I'm just going to put him on there. And I was like, yeah, go for it. So once he was on there and it came out, I, messaged him and I was like, thank you. And, if you want a copy of it, let me know. And then I was like, can I send you beats? He was like, yeah. And I sent him beats and he was like, I really like your beats. Like a lot of people send me beats and I don't like them. He was like, I like your beats, like genuinely. And I was like, cool. Can we start, let's record. And so the stuff I was sending him was like a lot of the stuff that ended up being on the first record, the Real Bad Boldy. And it was probably like the stuff that had more soul loops. And I think he really reacted to that because it seems like he likes very soulful beats, but he kind of like, back then that the batches that I was sending him had more soul samples in them. And I think he reacted to that because I think a lot of people were sending him stuff that I guess didn't have soul loops in them. But yeah, I think we work well because I let him do his thing and he lets me do my thing. It's very rare that like we bump heads on stuff. He kind of like does it and then lets me kind of do my thing. So I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah. Do you ever think about your connection to growing up with Al and then where you're at now?
I mean, we weren't like super close growing up, but like we were friendly.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I always followed his career and I'd run into him every couple of years and be like, oh, what's up? And, we'd catch up and, he,
but you ended up you're in a lane that you've made a name for yourself, which is surprising,
Yeah. I don't think of it too much because he's like here and I'm still like here. Like, he's accomplished and
but who has more Boldy albums than you two? That's a weird coincidence.
Yeah, but I wouldn't know Boldy if he hadn't put him on that record.
Yeah, but if you didn't have the talent to match, it wouldn't have.
Sure. Yeah. Regardless of talent, it's more
like a chicken and the egg type thing.
Yeah. But who knows, it coming through him probably helped, Bold, when I was, hitting up Boldy. But yeah, I don't think about it too much. I just try to do me. I try to sound like me. Like I'm not, I listen to some stuff. There's no way I can listen to everything, but I try to make, I can only make beats the way I know how to do it, so hopefully I sound unique and like the stuff sounds different than what's out there.
That's why you didn't like the rules.
Yeah. I was always trying to break the rules, but I didn't know how to break the rules in a way that would still sound good. It became too like weird or alternative. I don't want to make alternative rap. That was like a thing back then. Like I don't want to make experimental rap. I want to make rap. Like, just stuff that still feels like a rap song. So
Yeah.
I go against a lot of my instincts of like, hey, I'm gonna play a bunch of shit over these beats, and just keep them as stripped down as possible. I'm from the mindset of like, hey, it's a chorus, something big has to happen. Like that's how when I had a band, like you couldn't just have the whole, a 2-bar loop the whole time. Like something would have to change. And so I try to do that sometimes, but it has to be the right song. And I think with like modern rap, it's loopy and hypnotic, and you can have the same thing going over and over again for a song, and the rapper is the instrument on top of it that kind of like carries it. But as a producer, I still want to like, when there's a chorus or there's something, I want it to be still exciting. I want
Yeah.
it to build and evolve.
It's like you want to follow certain rules, but not when you're told them.
Yeah, I want to follow my personal rules, which could
Hmm.
be not even rules, they're just like these are the things I do. These are like habits or
Yeah.
things that I like that sound good to my ear. But then, I think as I've worked with other artists that don't really do choruses or their choruses aren't big, you know, it's caused me to like reevaluate and look at things a little differently,
Hmm.
how I create the song or what I do to it afterwards. Because um usually when I send beats, they're not finished. They're not like these are the finished songs. I don't sit there and like, you know, play the bass and like do all this stuff to it until I get it back. It'll be like a loop. And a lot of the times, I don't know if the person rapping to it even knows it's not finished. They might think, yo, this is fresh. But then once I get it, then I need to like then I sort of go in and produce the song, and it's like, okay, like it needs a drop out here. I'm going to add something to this section. I'm going to maybe move it, make the chorus twice as long at the end, you know. And then that's when we'll be like, oh, maybe we should put someone else on this song. Who should we get? And sort of like thinking in those terms of like, um, I don't know, shaping the song, shaping the project by like adding other elements.
Do you have that clear of a vision on future plans too, of like what you want to create in the future? Is it more you want control over the moment?
Uh no, like I mean I can give you like I'm working on a project now. We're finishing up with Luca,
Oh,
rapper
that's
from
dope.
Memphis.
Yeah.
And so it's turned out to be a very special project. So like he loves it, I love it. It's probably the most collaborative project I've done to date that isn't my own band. Like so a lot of back and forth, a lot of getting on Zooms, and I gave him, you know, it was moving quickly. And so we would go on like Zooms and I would open up Ableton, and sometimes I make these 10-minute tracks of just loops. Like I put records into the computer, and then I basically make 10 minutes of loops where they change like every like, 8 bars, 12 bars, and usually I'll put acapellas underneath them. So I'll take like a Boldy acapella from one of our songs, and I'll just repeat it over and over again for 10 minutes so I can hear how a voice sounds over the loops.
Hmm.
And then from there, so I would get on with Luca and I'd be like, all right, I'm going to play you a bunch of stuff. Tell me when there's loops you like. And he'll be like, that one, that one, that one. And then we'd just stack them. And then he'd have like 5 out of that batch. And then I would just make 6-minute versions of those loops, and with saying, keep in mind these are just loops, there's nothing added. I'm gonna once you send them back to me, I'm gonna start adding stuff. And as we're now getting into finishing the record, I keep adding stuff, and he's like, I don't like that. I like the old version. And so it's definitely like a balance of taking the loops or the chops, like they're not all just straight loops. Sometimes they're pieced together, but it's just a sample. There's nothing added.
Yeah.
And then going in and producing the song where it still has the same feeling as the sample alone when there's stuff in it. So and with that record, when we started it, he had a vision of what it was going to be about, and I had a vision of kind of like, hey, these are the type of beats that I feel like would go well. But he also kind of pushed it into like usually my drums are pretty loud, and this record has the drums are not very loud. They're a little more subdued and in the back. And with this record, it's the first one where there aren't a ton of the guests on the record are like his guests, like the people from his crew that he always records with. And then there's going to be one kind of bigger name guest on it that hasn't recorded yet, so I'm not going to say on camera who it is, but like a guest. And then I've reached out to a few like musicians from like bands that I like and like in the jazz world to play on it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of the first time I'm getting to kind of curate sort of the overall sound without just a guest. Usually it's like, oh, we'll get Boldy to rap on this, or like someone that'll create that sort of energy that'll get people excited. Oh, it's Boldy and this person to get, or Luca and this person. But now I'm going a step further on this one because we don't want a lot of features. This record's like really like Luca at the center, but like adding interesting musicians to it, is going to be cool. So like one of the guys who played on all the Outkast records played bass.
That's
Preston
pretty cool.
is playing bass on a few of the songs, and so he already started. So like I have one of the songs with his bass, and then but yeah, reaching out to kind of like people in like sort of the jazz world that I like, that I listen to, and then having them play on it. And so I'm just kind of getting started asking people, but so far no one has said no, but I don't have recordings yet for everyone. So until I do, I won't mention names, but yeah, it should be a really very cool, eclectic project, but it still needs to sound like a rap record.
Yeah.
Going back to like the original question.
Do you see all your other albums as like your albums featuring this person?
No, because at the end of the day, I know people are listening to a Boldy record because of Boldy. No one's like, oh shit, Real Bad Man. And it's
You don't think so?
No, I don't think at this point. If it is, it's a smaller group. Like because if you look at records with like, I can see it in terms of like numbers. When you look at like when I release a record, with Boldy, and I release a record with a different rapper, like you could see where it lands in like the digital streaming space, like and how people listen and how people follow and are fans of certain artists. I do think there's probably a few out there that are like, damn, it's Real Bad Man, but like
for the Pink Sifu album, I was like, oh shit,
yeah.
Real Bad Man put out an album with it. I'm gonna listen to that.
But I think yes, I mean that's what I want to be able to do. To be like, oh, I'm putting out a record with an artist you might not know, but I just know that from past experiences, like the Boldy records I've done have been the biggest because of Boldy.
Yeah.
So
I ask because you keep an art, like the art under one.
It's because we're on a label. It's because it's released on our label, and I grew up with like the era of like Mo Wax being like a really big influence on like a label that like had really cool art, and it translates throughout. So, and it's also kind of like not being lazy, but it's easier when you have a white background and it's just one image. What's that image for that album? How does it, how does it what is it and how does it relate to the music on there.
Who
So
designs your who designs all of that?
for the earlier ones, my sort of creative partner for Real Bad Man, who's an illustrator, like the Real Bad Boldy record, like he drew that. But he's very busy. So I've had to kind of go like for the music part, because it's really me just doing it. I kind of I'll reach out to artists or people that I know with an idea. Like, oh, so far I say draw this in your style. So yeah, there's like the next record that comes out at the end of this month is Cool Keith. So
Oh wow.
that's the first one that I actually no, Sifu and Killing Nothing he didn't do. So yeah, from Killing Nothing on, like I've sort of I'll tell the artist what I need and then I'll send it to them, and then usually Noah, who's my partner, will kind of put finishing touches on it. For the most part, I have other people now doing it, and I know what I want, so I
How
reach
much
out
shit,
to them.
how much shit are you sitting on?
Um, I have the Stove God Cooks album that never came out. Um, that's the only thing that's like finished and like I have a test pressing of it, like
Oh
it's mixed and
really?
mastered and like yeah, ready to go.
Gee, who's on
That was
any
supposed to come
features
out
on it?
after. That was supposed to be the thing that came out after Real Bad Boldy. That was like the
Damn.
plan.
Any
So it was
features
finished.
on it?
What?
Any features on it?
Yeah, a lot.
Who
Um,
who's on it?
Conway's on it, Mayhem's on it, and Grip.
God damn. Do you think
Yeah,
it'll ever see the light of day or not?
it has to in some way. Like it has to. I just don't know when.
Yeah,
Uh, I don't know. Yeah,
yeah,
it has to. It's like finished and it's good, but it'll come out at some point. I can't. It's not gonna. I can't imagine it. I just don't know when that'll be.
yeah. No,
Hopefully, people will still care by then. By the time it comes out,
any other projects you're sitting on?
like so Cool Keith is coming out next. That's finished. It's like already like the single, the first like release comes out Friday, like the
Oh
first.
wow.
So, and then after that will be Blue, like Blue in Exile. That one's
Yeah.
like done. The art is like over there. I can hold it up. Um,
Shit, that shit's crazy.
so
Damn.
yeah, so that's the art for that, and then it's in the mastering phases, so it's done. It's like mixed. It's almost mastered. Um, I just have to give some notes, and so that should come out summer,
Mhm.
hopefully. I'm trying to with Cool Keith. Um, I believe vinyl will be in hand when it comes out. So, I don't love the pre-order thing.
Mm.
Pre-order and then vinyl comes out and you get it like 6 months later.
Yeah, the
So
vinyl game's fucked right now.
I'm trying to work a little I'm trying to have vinyl in hand or at least be like a month, so you're not waiting like 6 months.
Yeah.
And then after Blue will probably be Luca, I'm guessing. Because we're kind of like mixing and finishing it at the same time. Um, but depends on like the features. I think the like sort of the features are going to be key. I don't want to rush it because I
Yeah.
like there's an El Camino project that's like kind of done, kind
Shout
of
out El Camino.
mixed. Yeah. It's kind of it's 80%, 90% done.
That's
Just
gonna
like
I can't wait to hear that. I love Camino.
yeah, yeah, it's good. It's like I like how he's grown as a rapper.
Mm.
Um, and he picked kind of interesting beats too. So and then Young Morpheus,
Oh, okay. Wow. Yeah.
which we're sort of like finishing now, and then I think that's it for like done, like things that are mostly done.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
mean, there's a few that are like in the works that have songs, but like Young Morpheus is done, Luca's almost done, Camino's pretty much done. So
Yeah.
that'll take me probably till next year. I can't like
Yeah,
um
that's crazy. And you have a whole other
yeah.
how do you
So I
balance all your time?
um well, I'm lucky that most of the music I'm not sitting there when they're recording.
Mhm.
So once beats are made, I send them. There's a few people that if you're in LA, I can usually record, but even Blue, who's like in LA, like he records on his own. So like he'd record and then we met up and like listened to it. But like for the most part, you know, he's I'm not in a studio while people are recording 4 albums worth of stuff.
Yeah.
Like I don't think I could do that. I wouldn't be able to. So I work on music at night, on the weekends. I go into I have my own I have a company that I run with a partner that does sort of design and creative work. So um it's an agency, so everyone's working on like 10 different things at once. So if there's downtime or I need to like kind of like clear my mind, I'll make beats for like, an hour just to kind of like, I don't know, reset. Sort
Is
of I relax, that's how I relax.
is your business self-sufficient enough that you don't have to like would you ever become a full-time creator like
I mean if it I don't know. Yes, I would. If someone was like, "Hey, you can make the same amount making beats and producing as you do working for like, big brands and designing," I would,
Mhm.
you know. So it would just sort of like um if my career as a music person took off, then yes. But
you
I think making like sort of independent underground records, probably not.
do you have a proudest moment
No. In music,
in anything?
I mean, like like when we put out the Boldy records, like getting this is gonna I because I'm older, like Pitchfork used to mean something, so like getting a review in Pitchfork was like, oh cool,
Yeah.
like that was cool. Like those sort of milestones are cool. Even if I sort of disagree with the number, like, they should have given me higher. Like they had nothing bad to say, but it's not an 8.0, you know.
Yeah.
Uh so that sort of thing, like that I like getting the sort of recognition from like people or places that I respect.
Hmm.
I think that's sort of like that's like a I guess that would be like proudest moments in music would be, you know yeah, would be that sort of thing.
Final question. How was your trip to Tokyo?
It was my third in the last like 7 months. So
God damn, what are you doing out there?
yeah, I've been going. um so I go a lot for work. Like
Hmm.
a lot of companies I work for have like a big presence in Japan, and or when you do these sort of like research trips, for like, hey, we're gonna plan like fall 24 designs. We're gonna go get inspiration. Like Tokyo is like the place. Um, and I usually would go like 2 or 3 times a year. Then
Wow.
COVID happened, and then everything was shut down. No one was. You weren't really going international. Um, so from 2019 was the last time I was there, October 2019, and then last summer in July, um, like I was like, friends of mine who I work with were going for like, and they were able to you had to get a visa to get in, like a work visa, but like they were like, oh, it's easy to get, like if you need one, like just ask this person. So I was like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna go because I want to dig for records also. Like it would be a good like inspiration trip. I could go, I could do work, my regular work, and I could like get some music going. So I got my visa. I went for like a week and a half. I went and did work stuff. I went and did music stuff. I came back. It was great. No one was there because you had to have a visa to get in.
Yeah.
So the only tour, there were no people, there were no tourists. It was just like, people that were there for work.
Is it as beautiful as of a city as they say?
Yeah, it's like it's the city I've been to the most out of any other city besides the one I've lived in. So like I've been there 25, 30 times. So
Whoa,
I know it very well.
How's that flight? Jesus, you're probably good on planes. You're just like
Usually going there is hard. Going back is easier. Like going back to LA is easier. But yeah, it's like, you're in the mix. It's like crazy crowded, it's noisy, it's loud, and then at night it's peaceful and calm. And it's like Japan has that mix. I mean, Tokyo has that mix of like, you're walking down the street, there's TV screens blasting stuff, there's big buses with like lights and like advertisements playing like J-pop, and like, you're at it's a dense city. But then there's like these gems where you walk it, you'll find a bar or a store, and it'll be this store owner who's like, I love, African records, and it's just a store for African records, or I love hats, vintage baseball hats from the 40s, and I've created a bar dedicated to that. It's like it has very unique things, and beyond that you can kind of get anything you want, like in terms of like you can go and have like some of the best pizza you've ever had, because the Japanese chef went to Italy for 5 years and studied with like a pizza master and can make pizza really well, and it's like he has the perfect oven, and then but then also at the same time you can go and see every brand of clothing in existence all within like a 2-mile radius, from like Gucci to North Face to Stussy to Supreme.
Have you
Like
traveled around the country?
Yeah, I have not a lot. I usually just stay in Tokyo, but I've I've been to Kyoto, Osaka, Okinawa, Hakone, and kind of been around there a lot. I haven't gone like too far out, but when I was in the summer of 2019, I was there for 6 weeks. And I was there with my family. We rented a house in Shibuya, and we kind of traveled around, and that was when I was making a lot of the songs from the first On High Alert, the first and second, or most of the On High Alert songs were done during that time. So like I remember texting Ito and sending him beats like in between train rides. Most people didn't know I was in Tokyo, like, but I remember like sending beats and working on songs like while I was there.
Fun, quick little story.
Yeah.
I gave Ito the first mushrooms he ever did. We did them like the night we met.
That's cool. How'd he do? How'd he do?
He's hilarious. I love Ito. He's amazing.
Yeah.
But that sounds amazing, man. I really appreciate your time. I know you just got back for doing this and talking.
Yeah, I slept like 9 hours. So like I slept on the plane. It was a 9-hour flight. I slept 5 of the 9 hours. I got up and I worked on stuff for the last 4, and then I got home. I stayed up the whole day, and then at the end, and then last night at 10:30 I crashed, and I slept the whole night, and that's usually a good sign. So
thank you for doing
might
this.
not be jet lagged as much as I was there. Coming home's easier.
Been there enough that you're used to. I was about to be like, damn, he has all the like. How is he gonna handle that? But you've done it.
Yeah, I've done it now.
Also, last thing, why don't clothing brands make bigger size pants? I'm a 46 waist, and I'm 46-36. No one, I can never find shit in my
Got
size.
I probably smaller clothing brands like Real Bad Man. Like we just can't get every size. You have to
No,
like
I understand. I'm
yeah,
just being a dick,
yeah,
but I
yeah.
literally am always so mad because I love
Yeah.
certain
No, I
designs.
mean we get like every once in a while someone will be like, "Oh, do you have a 3X?" And it's like, "No, because if we made it, like no one would buy it except for the one time you want that one shirt." You know
Yeah,
what I
no,
mean? And
I
then we'd
totally
be like, "Why
understand.
do like it's like even now it's like I was like, why do we make smalls? We don't sell smalls. Like no one wants a small." But like you're supposed to do small through double X is like the standard.
Yeah.
But um yeah, I'm sorry we don't
I'm
make a lot of
just saying
pants.
any brands,
Yeah.
it's hard for me to find shit
Yeah.
that fits.
Yeah.
No, I have a
Uh,
bunch of your shirts. I love your designs. I love your music, and it
thank
really
you.
is an honor to talk because I am a very big.
Yeah, yeah. I'm glad we could do this.
Me
So
too.